Welcome to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell, on the Big Talker 1580.
Hello, and welcome to Real Talk. I'm Dr. Valencia Campbell, and I'm your host. Real Talk is a weekly radio show designed to address some of the most challenging issues confronting our community, including substance abuse and treatment, finding mentors, the real story about getting into law school or medical school, personal experiences with trying to get a conditional pardon, and so forth. We've had some really dynamic speakers here recently talking about this whole issue of substance abuse and the treatment that might be available with Dr. Mildred Enty, and Matthew Fogg also here talking about many of the issues that are affecting families. Today, I'm delighted to let you know that we'll be talking about taking advantage of degree programs in the College of Professional Studies at Bowie State University. My guest today is Dr. Jerome Sheely. Dr. Sheely is a professor and dean of the College of Professional Studies at Bowie State University. He received his bachelor's degree in sociology from Hampton University in 1983 and obtained both his master's and doctoral degrees in social work from Howard University. Prior to arriving at Bowie State, he was a professor and associate dean in the School of Social Work at the University of Georgia. Dr. Sheely has taught and served in administrative roles at Morgan State University, Norfolk State University, Clark Atlanta University, and the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He's published numerous scholarly articles, essays, books, and as well as book chapters. The books include Human Services and the Afrocentric Paradigm back in 2000. He has also co-authored with Phyllis Day a book on a new history of social welfare that's here in 2012. He has also been involved as an editor of the book Social Welfare Policy, Regulation, and Resistance Among People of Color. And that's just a few of his many accomplishments. He is also a very active member in several professional organizations, and his primary teaching interests include social welfare history, social work practice theory, and social policy analysis. Wow. How many accomplishments can we add to that, Dr. Sheely?
I don't know.
Well, this is certainly a fraction of what you've been doing, but we are just so excited to have you here today with us.
Well, I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Tell our listeners a little bit about how you became interested in working in higher education.
Well, actually, probably by accident. I started out as a business administration major in North Carolina A&T, and then I transferred back home to Hampton, and there was a major professor at Hampton Institute at that time by the name of Professor Ernie Morant, and he really took me under his tutelage, and he was really my mentor. And he was a social worker, MSW from New York. He had gone to NYU. He had engaged in 1960s social activism. So he really got me interested in social work. And so because of him, I came up here to Howard to do an MSW and really just wanted to practice social work. But while at Howard, I got very interested in research and theoretical matters as it pertained to social work, and particularly specific social problems that affected the African American community. And so while at Howard, I was recruited into the doctoral program. And then, of course, if you move into a doctoral program, most people who get PhDs move into academia as a faculty member and researcher. So it was really Ernest Morant that kind of moved me into graduate school. And then once I got to graduate school, my interest in research really blossomed. And so I just moved forward, and I've been in academia now for 22 years.
That is a wonderful story. We've had Ms. Shayla Jackson on previously talking about the role of mentors and the importance of having a mentor in your career fields. So I'm delighted to mention that now that you have actually highlighted how important that is, to be able to have someone to talk to kind of guide you with what would be important in pursuing certain types of fields. And certainly the fact that you were actually changing over from business into social work is a huge, huge step. So what other positions, if any, did you consider prior to moving into, I would say, the PhD program and knowing that you would be in social work? And other than that business field, was there anything else of interest to you?
At one time, I was very interested in music, and I played in the high school band and played in the junior high school band. But later on, as I kind of carved out social work as my interest, I really became extremely interested in substance abuse. And in fact, at Howard, we were required to write a research project, and I did my research project on substance abuse, and I interviewed some substance abusers and treatment providers at a major treatment center here in Washington back in the 80s, and so I was interested mainly in substance abuse treatment and prevention. But because of my interest in research and social theory, I thought that I would need to get a doctoral degree, especially if I wanted to move into academia. So really, substance abuse, and it continues to be an interest of mine. I've published a little bit in that area, but clearly I have a professional interest because substance abuse and addiction is such a major problem in our society that cuts across social class and racial lines. And so I think if we can really address that issue, that would help to advance families and relationships, et cetera, in our society.
Well, it's certainly something that our group, the Prince George's County Drug Policy Coalition, has moved into, trying to look at treatment aspects of substance abuse as opposed to more punitive measures. And I'm curious just to know, what did you find back then when you were interested as far as the treatment model?
Well, the treatment model at this particular place was eclectic, and they really relied heavily on fixing or repairing the individual's identity. And they felt that for many African American substance users and abusers, that a kind of negative racial identity was a major factor that kind of led to their substance abuse. So their goal was to kind of reconstruct and repair the racial identity and the self-esteem, but connected to racial oppression and discrimination that so many of the substance abusers had experienced in their lives. And of course, they used the traditional methods of cognitive therapy as well as behavioral interventions as well. But it really was focused on improving and developing one's sense of self, particularly one's sense of racial self-concept. And it was called RAP Incorporated. I don't know if many people, listeners out there, were familiar with RAP Incorporated, but it was a major substance abuse treatment facility and center in D.C. back in the 1980s. And of course, as you all remember, the 80s was a terrible period in the District of Columbia, especially when crack cocaine emerged in 1985. I was here in D.C. I lived in Southeast Washington at the time. And, of course, the murder rate associated with the sale and distribution of crack cocaine soared in the district. And so RAP Incorporated was one of those treatment facilities that was trying to address not only substance abuse, but also the violence that ensued from it.
And I was going to say, we had Matthew Fogg on last week talking about this whole issue of the disparities in terms of the treatment for those who have crack cocaine versus the powdered cocaine. Mm-hmm. And one of the big points that he made, particularly as a marshal, was that there seemed to have been this targeting in a number of urban areas where you would then have the additional problem of folks being carted off to jail. And even though this abuse was occurring elsewhere, it was really being targeted in a number of the urban communities where, as you know, there are a significant proportion of minorities residing. Mm-hmm, and so that was a big thing that he tried to change within the U.S. Marshals field. Mm-hmm. And it still is. We've talked about it with other guests as well. It still is a big problem in terms of how our law enforcement operates. Even though we know that, police have a lot of discretion, it can be in many times a negative for those that might come into contact with being stopped or profiled and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it is still very much a hot button issue that we're going to be talking about as we go forward with this, particularly in light of the Trayvon Martin case and some other incidents that are not as popular in terms of receiving media attention. Mm-hmm. But let us talk a little bit more now about your role as the dean at Bowie State University. Tell us what a typical day looks like for you.
Well, a typical day for a dean is replete with, I guess, the general role and expectation is really problem solving, problem management, and problem prevention. And so a typical day for me would be to engage in maybe 2 or 3 meetings. Sometimes those meetings are not planned. Definitely to manage your emails, and of course my inbox is full all of the time, it seems like. But essentially, a dean within academia is basically a kind of mid-level manager. If you think about academia, the senior managers would be the president and the vice presidents and the provost. And then if you come into the middle level, you would have the deans. And then under the deans, you have essentially department chairs and program coordinators. So I'm the dean of the College of Professional Studies, which has the largest enrollment at Bowie State University, at least in terms of the undergraduate student enrollment. And so we could talk a little bit more about that, too.
Well, I want you to tell us exactly what fields of study are part of the College of Professional Studies.
We have 4 departments in the College of Professional Studies. We have the Department of Psychology, Social Work, Behavioral Sciences, and Nursing. Behavioral Sciences also includes 4 programs. We have a criminal justice program, and of course our criminal justice program is one of the fastest growing programs on campus, and it's a new program. We have sociology within behavioral sciences. We have a program that specializes in child and adolescent studies, and then we have a master's program in human resource development. We also have another master's program in nursing as well, and so nursing, psychology, social work, and behavioral sciences are the 4 departments, and we have a little over 1,700 students altogether, most of whom are undergraduate students.
Okay, so in terms of folks who are listening, if they're interested in one of those departments that you mentioned, who would be the contact person? I mean, is there an overall person that they should reach?
Yeah, they can contact the dean's office actually at area code 301-860-4700. That's 301-860-4700. Or they can go into Bowie State's website and just click on College of Professional Studies, and you'll see the email addresses there as well. But they can just directly call the 4700 number or go into the website itself. We're in the process of one of the things I did when I first got on board was to establish a college-wide website committee to revise and improve our website. So we're in the process of revising and refurbishing our website because we understand that that's how we market ourselves, and that's the source through which many people obtain information these days about colleges and universities. So that number is fine, and the website is fine as well.
And typically, I know there are probably some variations in terms of requirements, but could you give us like what the typical requirements would be for folks who are interested in applying to Bowie State?
Yeah, well, basically, students would need to have a GPA average. Of course, 3.0 is always better, but that's not a requirement. But coming out of high school, students need generally around a 2.5, and we have SAT requirements, but the SAT requirements are not as strong as maybe at some other universities, and of course the admissions process is centralized at Bowie. And so there's an admissions department that really handles all of the undergraduate applications that the university receives. The bulk of our applicants are from the state of Maryland, and many of them come from Prince George's County. Bowie State really represents a kind of inexpensive way to receive a high-quality education. Many parents, of course, are stressed out these days financially, and of course, that's a major barrier to higher education. So Bowie really offers a very high-quality education for a very reasonable price. And I think that's why a lot of students are attracted to it. It's here, it's close to home, and of course the D.C. area provides a lot of opportunities for students, especially job opportunities and internship opportunities too, as they matriculate through the university.
Well, I can tell you I have had the opportunity to visit Bowie, and it is a beautiful campus. And I've seen quite a few new buildings up, as well as the dorms now that where students are actually able to stay on campus. And I think it's certainly an absolutely beautiful campus for students. Now, let me ask you to kind of put your dean's hat on again in terms of, you said you were a problem solver and all of that. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the kinds of things that students should contact you directly about as opposed to their department chair.
Well, in academia, there's a structure. I call it a kind of a pecking order. Students, most problems in academia for students emerge in the classroom with a professor, and it's usually around a grade appeal. And so the first line of defense is really students should always go to their professors and try to work out and resolve the problem at that level. Oftentimes, professors are very open, and if students would take the time to just set up an appointment, and engage the professor. The professor might be willing to consider the student's point of view and also even change the grade. But let's say that doesn't happen. Then the next level is the level of the department chair. And so the department chair will basically resolve the problem if it cannot be resolved at the level with the student and the professor. And then if the department chair is unable to resolve the problem, then it comes to me.
Okay.
And then hopefully, I encourage resolution at the lower levels, but sometimes that's not possible, and so ultimately it can come to my office. But usually once it comes to my office, students have tried to resolve it at the lower levels.
Okay, so that gives parents that are listening or other folks who are planning to go into school some idea of how this process works with respect to their department chair and the dean's office, because I know oftentimes, as you said, sometimes it's around a grade, sometimes they may be graduating, and a lot of times parents aren't sure who they should be speaking to since the students are considered adults. Mm-hmm. So that's an important piece of information for our listeners to have. Mm-hmm. You are listening to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell. Our sponsor, the Prince George's County Drug Policy Coalition, aims to promote drug policies and laws that embrace the public health nature of drug abuse and provide a more humane approach to address this chronic problem of drug abuse. We were absolutely thrilled to award about 17 scholarships to area students not too long ago, back in April, who are very interested in continuing their higher education or looking into other types of programs, for example, in the art field or so forth. So we're very pleased with the number of candidates that we had who applied for those scholarships. Now I am back with my guest, Dr. Jerome Shealy, Dean of the College of Professional Studies at Bowie State University. Dean Shealy, tell us, what are some of your priorities for the coming academic semester?
Well, basically, when I started in January, I delineated a vision, and that vision for our college was to exert more influence and visibility in the community. It's very important now that universities collaborate and establish partnerships with governmental agencies as well as nonprofits. Because universities exist to serve the community. They do that in several ways. Number one, they do that by providing the community with a trained workforce. But also, because of the expertise of faculty members and others, universities can engage in some of the methods to solve problems, critical social problems in our community. So that's very important.
So what are some of the research interests of your faculty, especially concerning young people?
Well, some of the research interests are violent crime among young people, domestic violence. Prison reentry is a major research interest, particularly in our criminal justice area. In the area of nursing, of course, we are very concerned with many of the public health problems, HIV prevention, diabetes, et cetera, that, of course, disproportionately affect communities of color. But in terms of one of the things I want to do as dean, and an idea that I have, is really to establish an institute for public policy research and practice. And really the institute could serve as a way through which faculty research interests, curriculum development interest, and also interest in helping to solve some of the major social problems in our county here in Prince George's County, as well as the state of Maryland. And so that's a major priority for the college. Another major priority, of course, is to make sure that we enhance our graduation and retention rates. The chancellor of the University System of Maryland has a goal for all of the university system colleges to have a graduation, an undergraduate graduation rate of 55% by 2020. And so that becomes very critical for us. Increasing our online education becomes critical as well, as many students today are working and need more convenience in their education.
Well, we'll be looking forward to hearing more about the institute that you talked about as that unfolds. And briefly, could you tell us a little bit about overall some of the issues that the university will be addressing with respect to problems that are affecting our young people?
Well, the university, President Burnham, Mickey Burnham, is the president of Bowie State University, and when he came in, he established a Black Male Initiative. And if you go on you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but if you go on any college campus, you will not see a large number of African-American males. And so the initiative is to reach out and try to recruit more African-American males, and also once they get in the college, to make sure that they're able to be retained and graduate.
That is fantastic. Now tell our listeners how they can reach you if they have additional questions about the programs and opportunities available at the College of Professional Studies.
They can reach me at area code 301-860-4700, or they can email me at jshealy, and that's J, S as in Sam, C as in Charlie, HIELE at bowiestate.edu.
You have been listening to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell. I want to especially thank Dr. Shealy for joining us today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next Saturday at noon on Real Talk.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell. For more information about Real Talk, contact Dr. Valencia Campbell at 301-341-2247 or reach them online at valenciacampbell2003 at yahoo.com.